Ooh, Annie's first.
No fair.
She's
I'm
back.
Here.
She is back.
First. Stupid.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Whoever's logging on. I found an interesting rock remix of Harry Potter. Let's see here. It should be kicking in, and I can't really watch the screen because there was some like movie scenes. And I was like, I don't want to see this. A mixture between violin and rock. Not bad. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm just waiting till people log on before I commence. Welcome to Conk's Corner with John Reedsley, aka Moi, and Mark over there, and little Dexy Poo over here. There's that guy. So what I'm doing is I'm reading Harry Potter 1 hour every day for you and for me because I've never read it. It's a time for distraction, a time to connect. And I say this every single time: you have value, you have purpose, and you are loved. Don't forget that if you're by yourself and are not able to see people as often as usual. Sometimes we can get into our own head about all of that. So yeah, I've never read or seen the books. Read the books. I've seen 2 or 3 of the movies. Don't know much about them. I can't really remember any details around them. I read all the comments afterwards, so no spoilers, please. No hints about what you love or anything like that. Well, about what's coming up that you love. I leave a Q&A at the end to connect with you because I can't read and read your comment at the same time. And I save all of these on YouTube. So if you want to catch up, go to the link in my bio and you can catch up from there. I also want to do something new is call out all the health care workers and to thank them. You can also write them in the comments. If I missed you somehow and you're a healthcare worker, please, message me. So we have Alana Wright, a good friend of mine. We got Lawrence Belmer, Darren Weeb, Katrina Joy, Sarah Popta are all healthcare workers in our chat usually. So thank you so much for your work. All right, I'm gonna switch over to the calmer music. And where did we end off? Oh yeah, so they got to Hogwarts. There are now Dementors hanging around the hallways, or around the building at least, defending from Sirius Black, who's on the loose and apparently wants to kill Harry Potter because Harry Potter kind of killed Voldemort, or half killed Voldemort, and that disrupted Sirius Black's plan. I don't fully understand his motives, but he wants to kill Harry Potter. Last night's is not up on YouTube yet. I had some difficulties today, but I'm in the process. I just finished off one problem, so tomorrow it will be up, or even tonight actually. It'll be up tonight. Okay, so we are essential workers like grocers, clerks. Yes, absolutely essential workers too. I probably won't have time to list all of them, but healthcare workers, they're working really hard to save lives, and so I'll be thanking them first and foremost. But absolutely, essential workers, thank you for doing your job too. We are going from chapter 6, page 75 in this book, if you want to follow along. And off we go. Chapter 6, Talons and Tea Leaves. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione entered the Great Hall for breakfast next day, the first thing they saw was Draco Malfoy, who seemed to be entertaining a large group of Slytherins with a very funny story. As they passed, Malfoy did a ridiculous impression of a swooning fit, and there was a roar of laughter. "Ignore him," said Hermione, who was right behind Harry. "Just ignore him. It's not worth it." Pansy Parkinson, a Slytherin girl. All right, if she's a main character, Pansy Parkinson, let me know some adjectives of how you would describe it. Nerds don't bring you double pepperoni olive pizzas, John. Nice. Okay, a Slytherin girl with a face like a pug. Like a pug. How do pugs breathe? Okay. "Hey, Potter!" shrieked Pansy Parkinson, a Slytherin girl with a face like a pug. "Potter! The Dementors are coming, Potter! Woo!" Maybe that fits for her. You let me know.
I love it.
Harry, good. Okay. Harry dropped into a seat at the Gryffindor table next to George Weasley. New third-year timetables," said George, passing them over. "What's up with you, Harry?" "Malfoy," said Ron, sitting down on George's other side and glaring over at the Slytherin table. George looked up in time to see Malfoy pretending to faint with terror again. "That little jit," he said. Jit or git?
Git.
Git. What does it mean? This popped up 3 or 4 times and I glanced over. I don't even know what it means.
I'm not sure I know either.
Jit? Git?
Git.
Let me know what you think. Jit or Git? That works. Sounds about right. Okay, cool. He said calmly. He wasn't so cocky last night when the Dementors were down our end of the train, came running into our compartment, didn't he, Fred? Nearly wet himself, said Fred, with a contemptuous glance at Malfoy. I wasn't too happy myself, said George. They're terrible things, those Dementors. Sort of freeze your insides, don't they? Said Fred. You didn't pass out, though, did you? Said Harry in a low voice. Oh, forget it, Harry, said George bracingly. Dad had to go out to Azkaban one time. Remember, Fred? And he said it was the worst place he'd ever been. He came back all weak and shaking. They suck the happiness out of the place, Dementors. Most of the prisoners go mad in there. Anyway, we'll see how happy Malfoy looks after our first Quidditch match, said Fred. I got a little difference in their voices. There we go. Gryffindor versus Slytherin. First game of the season, remember? The only time Harry and Malfoy had faced each other in a Quidditch match, Malfoy had definitely come off worse. Feeling slightly more cheerful, Harry helped himself to sausages and fried tomatoes. Hermione was examining her new timetable. Oh, good! We're starting some new subjects today, she said happily. Hermione, said Ron, frowning as he looked over her shoulder, they've messed up your timetable. Look, they've got you down for about 10 subjects a day. There isn't enough time. I'll manage. I fixed it all with Professor McGonagall. But look, said Ron laughing. See this morning? 9 o'clock, Divination. And underneath, 9 o'clock, Muggle Studies. And Ron leaned closer to the timetable, disbelieving. Look, underneath that, arithmetic. 9 o'clock. I mean, I know you're good, Hermione, but no one's that good. How are you supposed to be in 3 classes at once? Don't be silly, said Hermione shortly. Of course I won't be in 3 classes at once. Well then, pass the marmalade. But, oh, Ron, what's it to you if my timetable's a bit full, Hermione snapped. I told you I fixed it all with Professor McGonagall. Just then, Hagrid entered the Great Hall. I'm not sure if the music's loud enough. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Just then, Hagrid. I just love Hagrid so much. I get happy every single time his name's mentioned. The last time he got pulled in through the crowd or something like that. Just then, Hagrid entered the Great Hall. He was wearing his long moleskin overcoat and was absent-mindedly swinging a dead polecat from one enormous hand. Wait, what's a polecat?
Isn't that like a big weapon?
Is that a weapon? Polecat.
I don't know.
I mean, write in the comments. Maybe you can keep track of that. Let's see what a polecat is. All right, he said eagerly, pausing on the way to the staff table. You're in my first ever's lesson, right after lunch. Been up since 5, getting everything ready. Hope it's okay. Oh, me a teacher. Honestly. He grinned broadly at them and headed off to the staff table, still swinging.
It's a skunk.
It's like a bobcat, a skunk? What is up with him? He's always entering, like last book he entered he entered with a dead chicken which he was swinging around. Now it's a ferret skunk. What is wrong with him? He's like, this is okay. I love pets, but I'll still kill them and swing them around in public. He grinned broadly at them and headed off to the staff table, still swinging the polecat. Wonder what he's been getting ready, said Ron, a note of anxiety in his voice. The hall was starting to empty as people headed off towards their first lesson. Ron checked his timetable. We'd better go. Look, Divination's at the top of the North Tower. It'll take us 10 minutes to get there. They finished their breakfast hastily, said goodbye to Fred and George, and walked back through the hall. As they passed the Slytherin table, Malfoy did yet another impression of a fainting fit. The shouts of laughter followed Harry into the entrance hall. The journey through the castle to the North Tower was a long one. 2 years at Hogwarts. You know what I find funny is when people drink and look you right in the eye. Look at this. It turns a person from very likable to very creepy. They finished. Oh, sorry. Where we go? The journey through the castle to North Tower was a long one. 2 years at Hogwarts hadn't taught them everything about the castle, and they had never been inside the North Tower. There's got to be a shortcut, Ron panted as they climbed their 7th long staircase and emerged on an unfamiliar landing, where there was nothing but a large painting of a bare stretch of grass hanging on the stone wall. "I think it's this way," said Hermione, peering down the empty passage to the right. "Can't be," said Ron. "That's south. Look, you can see a bit of the lake out of the window." Harry was watching the painting. A fat, dapple gray pony had just ambled onto the grass and was gazing nonchalantly. Harry was used to the subjects of Hogwarts paintings moving around and leaving their frames to visit each other, but he always enjoyed watching them. A moment later, a short, squat knight in a suit of armor had clanked into the picture after his pony. By the look of the grass stains on his metal knees, he had just fallen off. I like this whole different world. How do they live? Do they know, is that their job or is that their full purpose in life? Like they're living, but then they're like, oh, better get to being in the picture. Is that work for them or is that their life's purpose? That's what I want to know. Little knight. "Ah!" he yelled, seeing Harry, Ron, and Hermione. "What villains are these that trespass upon my private lands? Come to scorn at my fall, perchance? Draw, you knaves, you dogs!" They watched in astonishment as the little knight tugged his sword out of its scabbard and began brandishing it violently, hopping up and down in rage. But the sword was too long for him. A particularly wild swing made him overbalance, and he landed face down in the grass. "Are you all right?" said Harry, moving closer to the picture. "Get back, you scabby braggart! Back, you rogue!" The knight seized his sword again and used it to push himself back up, but the blade sank deeply into the grass, and though he pulled with all his might, he couldn't get it out again. Finally, he had to flop back down onto the grass and push up his visor to mop his sweating face. I want to save myself. I figured it could be considered as a spoiler. Oh, somebody submitted a question or something. I'll keep these questions, whatever you... Actually, yeah, if you have questions that you want to ask, submit them in the question thing, then I can use them at the end. Never thought of that before. We can do it now. "Listen," said Harry, taking advantage of the knight's exhaustion. "We're looking for the North Tower. You don't know the way, do you?" "A quest!" This little guy's an idiot, sorry. He's an idiot knight. The knight's rage seemed to vanish instantly. He clanked to his feet and shouted, "Come follow me, dear friends, and we shall find our goal, or else shall perish bravely in the charge." He gave the sword another fruitless tug, tried and failed to mount the fat pony, and cried, "On foot then, good sirs and gentle lady, on! On!" And he ran, clanking loudly, into the left-hand side of the frame and out of sight. They hurried after him along the corridor, following the sound of his armor. Every now and then they spotted him running through a picture up ahead. "Be of stout heart! The worst is yet to come!" yelled the knight, and they saw him reappear in front of an alarmed group of women in crinolines. Crinoline, what's that? What's a crinoline?
Isn't that like the tool underneath a dress?
The tool underneath a dress? They had tools hidden there?
It's a type of fabric that's stiff, so it holds shape.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I think that's also crinoline. I think.
Crinoline, who's saw him reappear in front of an alarmed group of women in crinolines, whose picture hung on the wall of a narrow spiral staircase. Puffing loudly, Harry, Ron, and Hermione climbed the Oh, so he's been like running through pictures? Oh, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. That's so fun. Oh my gosh. I wish I was part of this world. Oh yeah. Puffing loudly, Harry, Ron, and Hermione climbed the tightly spiraling staircase, getting dizzier and dizzier, until at last they heard the murmur of voices above them and knew they had reached the classroom. "Farewell!" cried the knight. He's getting bigger and bigger, popping his head into a painting of some sinister-looking monks. "Farewell, my comrades in arms! If ever you have need of noble heart and steely sinew, call upon Sir Cadogan! Yeah, we'll call you, muttered Ron, as the knight disappeared. If we ever need someone mental. Ron. You're part of this world, John. You are. Yes, I am, Timon. They climbed the last few steps and emerged onto a tiny landing where most of the class was already assembled. There were no doors off this landing. Ron nudged Harry and pointed at the ceiling where there was a circular trap door with a brass plaque on it. Sybil Trelawney, Divination teacher, Harry read. How are we supposed to get up there? Give me some adjectives for this new teacher, please, so that I know how to do Sybil, her voice. Or, yeah, her voice. As though in answer to his question, the trapdoor suddenly opened, and a silvery ladder descended right at Harry's feet. Everyone went quiet. After you, said Ron, grinning. So Harry climbed the ladder first. He emerged vapid, dreamy, spacey, okay, ethereal. Oh, that's going to be interesting. He emerged into the strangest looking classroom he had ever seen. In fact, it didn't look like a classroom at all. She's an astronomer, look hippie, spacey, cool. More like a cross between someone's attic and an old-fashioned tea shop. At least 20 small circular tables were crammed inside it, all surrounded by chintz armchairs and a fat little pouffaise. What is that word? Pouffaise. I don't know what that is. Everything was lit with a dim crimson light. The curtains at the windows were all closed, and the many lamps were draped with dark red scarves. It was stiflingly warm, and the fire which was burning under the crowded mantelpiece was giving off a heavy, sickly sort of perfume as it heated a large copper kettle. The shelves running around the circular walls were crammed with dusty-looking feathers, stubs of candles, many packs of tattered playing cards, countless silvery crystal balls, and a huge array of teacups. Ron appeared at Harry's shoulder as the class assembled around them, all talking in whispers. "Where is she?" Ron said. A voice suddenly came out of the shadows, a soft, misty sort of voice. Welcome, it said. How nice to see you in the physical world at last. Let me know. This is right. Harry's immediate impression was of a large, glittering insect. Professor Trelawney moved into the firelight, and they saw that she was very thin. Her large glasses magnified her eyes to several times their natural size. Good job, works. Okay, great. And she was draped in a gauzy, spangled shawl. Innumerable chains and beads hung around her spindly neck, and her arms and hands were encrusted with bangles and rings. "Sit, my children, sit," she said, and they all climbed awkwardly into armchairs or sank onto pouffaise. You're like the most gracious and enlightened person on the planet. Okay, good, thank you. Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat themselves around the same round table. "Welcome to Divination," said Professor Trelawney, who had seated herself in a winged armchair in front of the fire. "My name is Professor Trelawney. You may not have seen me before. I find that descending too often into the hustle and bustle of the main school clouds my inner eye." Nobody said anything in answer to this extraordinary pronouncement. Pouffaise? I'm saying pouffaise. Yeah. How do you pronounce that? Poofs?
I think it's just poofs.
Poofs? But why is there a double F then? What is a poofs? What is a poofs? You explain that to me, okay? You knowledgeable people. Professor Trelawney delicately rearranged her shawl and continued. "So, you have chosen to study divination, the most difficult of all magical arts. I must warn you at the outset that if you do not have the sight, there is very little I will be able to teach you. Books can take you only so far in this field. At these words, both Harry and Ron grimaced. A pillow-like thing on the floor. Yeah, I assumed. Where were we? At these words, both Harry and Ron glanced, grinning at Hermione, who looked startled at the news that books wouldn't be much help in this subject. Many witches and wizards, talented though they are in the area of loud bangs and smells and sudden disappearings, are yet unable to penetrate. Sorry.
Come on, what are you,
Sorry, yeah, I'm like 13 years. Well, you all said she's so hippie. I'm thinking like she's probably picking her words very carefully, you know? Penetrate the veiled mysteries of the future. Professor Trelawney went on, her enormous gleaming eyes moving from face to nervous face. Less sexy, more nerdy for Trelawney. Okay. It is a gift granted to few. You, boy. Nah, she's sexy, she said suddenly to Neville, who almost toppled off his poof. Is your grandmother well? I think so, said Neville tremulously. I wouldn't be so sure if I were you, dear, said Professor Trelawney, the firelight glinting on her long emerald earrings. Neville gulped. Professor Trelawney continued placidly. We will be covering the basic methods of divination this year. The first term will be devoted to reading the tea leaves. Next term, we shall progress to palmistry. By the way, my dear, she shot suddenly at Parvati Patil, beware a red-haired man. She's gonna be so weird throughout this. I love it. Parvati gave a startled look at Ron, who was right behind her, and edged her chair away from him. In the summer term, Professor Trelawney went on, we shall progress to the crystal ball, if we have finished with fire omens, that is. Unfortunately, classes will be disrupted in February by a nasty bout of flu. I myself will lose my voice, and around Easter, one of our number will leave us forever. A very tense silence followed this pronouncement, but Professor Trelawney seemed unaware of it. I wonder, dear, she said to Lavender Brown, who was nearest and shrank back in her chair, if you could pass me the largest silver teapot? You make her sound like a drag. That's okay with me. Lavender, looking relieved, stood up, took an enormous teapot from the shelf, and put it down on the table in front of Professor Trelawney. Thank you, my dear. Incidentally, that thing you are dreading, it will happen on Friday, the 16th of October. Lavender trembled. Now, I want you all to divide into pairs. Collect a teacup from the shelf, come to me, and I will fill it. Oh, man, she's great. Then sit down and drink. Drink only until the dregs remain. Swill these around the cup 3 times with the left hand, then turn the cup upside down on its saucer. Wait for the last of the tea to drain away, then give your cup to your partner to read. You will interpret the patterns using pages 5 and 6 of Unfogging the Future. I shall move among you, helping and instructing. Oh, and dear, she caught Neville by the arm as he made to stand up. After you've broken your first cup, would you be so kind as to select one of the blue patterned ones? I'm rather attached to the pink. She's so weird. Just dropping all these. Sure enough, Neville had no sooner reached the shelf of teacups when there was a tinkle of breaking china. Professor Trelawney swept over to him, holding a dustpan and brush, and said, "One of the blue ones, then, dear, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you." When Harry and Ron had had their teacups filled, they went back to their table and tried to drink the scalding tea quickly. They swilled the dregs around as Professor Trelawney had instructed, then drained the cups and swapped them. "Right," said Ron as they both opened their books at pages 5 and 6. "What can you see in mine?" "A load of soggy brown stuff," said Harry. The heavily perfumed smoke in the room was making him feel sleepy and stupid. What is she doing? She's drugging these kids. So funny. "Broaden your minds, my dears, and allow your eyes to see past the mundane," Professor Trelawney cried through the gloom. Harry tried to pull himself together. Right, you've got a wonky sort of cross," he said, consulting Unfogging the Future. "That means you're going to have trials and suffering. Sorry about that. But there's a thing that could be the sun. Hang on. That means great happiness. So you're going to suffer but be very happy." "You need your inner eye testing, if you ask me," said Ron, and they both had to stifle their laughs as Professor Trelawney gazed in their direction. "My turn," Ron. I'm already giving him a deep voice. He's already hit puberty, but no. "My turn." Ron peered into Harry's teacup, his forehead wrinkled with effort. "There's a blob, a bit like a bowler hat," he said. "Maybe you're going to work for the Ministry of Magic." He turned the teacup the other way round. "But this way it looks more like an acorn." "What's that?" He scanned his copy of Unfogging the Future. "A windfall, unexpected gold." "Excellent. You can lend me some. And there's a thing here." He turned the cup again. "That looks like an animal. Yeah. If that was its head, it looks like a hippo. No, a sheep." Professor Trelawney whirled around as Harry let out a sort of laughter. "Let me see that, my dear," she said reprovingly to Ron, sweeping over and snatching Harry's cup from him. Everyone went quiet to watch. Professor Trelawney was staring into the teacup, rotating it anti-clockwise. "The falcon. My dear, you have a deadly enemy." "But everyone knows that," said Hermione in a loud whisper. Professor Trelawney stared at her. "Well, they do," said Hermione. "Everybody knows about Harry and you know who." Harry and Ron stared at her with a mixture of amazement and admiration. They never had heard Hermione speak to a teacher like that before. Professor Trelawney chose not to reply. She lowered her huge eyes to Harry's cup again and continued to turn it. "The club! An attack! Dear, dear, this is not a happy cup." "I thought that was a bowler hat," said Ron sheepishly. "The skull! Danger in your path, my dear." Everyone was staring, transfixed, at Professor Trelawney, who gave the cup a final turn, gasped, and then screamed. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm sorry, I did not mean for that to come out that way at all. I didn't mean to. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry about that. Oh no! Hey, she is creating herself. After this stuff, I'm not meaning to do. I'm just following impulses and whatever she's giving me. I didn't mean to do that, but that's what happened. So, it's out of my hands. I washed my hands clean of that, okay? Okay. Whew. There was another tinkle of breaking china. Neville had smashed his second cup. I can't Oh no, I'm not even gonna comment on that. Oh my gosh. I think we wasted like 5 minutes just laughing about this stupid character.
Oh man.
Oh no. No, no, no. Whew, okay, sorry. Professor Trelawney sank into a vacant armchair, her glittering hand at her heart and her eyes closed. Hand at her heart and her eyes closed. My dear boy, my poor dear boy. No, it is kinder not to say. No, don't ask me. Dean Thomas. Who is he? Irish guy? Irish guy? I think so. What is it, Professor? Oh, actually, you know, maybe I'll make him Russian if he pops up more. What is it, Professor? What is it, Professor? Said Dean Thomas at once. Everybody had got to their feet, and slowly they crowded around Harry and Ron's table, pressing close to Professor Trelawney's chair to get a good look at Harry's cup. My dear, Professor Trelawney's huge eyes opened dramatically. You have the Grim. The what? He could tell that he wasn't the only one who didn't understand. Dean Thomas shrugged at him, and Lavender Brown looked puzzled, but nearly everybody else clapped their hands to their mouths in horror. Oh, Seamus is Irish, but not Russian? Why not? What else should he be? You tell me. Yeah, maybe can you keep track of whatever? Thanks, buddy. The Grim, my dear, the Grim! Cried Professor Trelawney, who looked shocked that Harry hadn't understood. The giant, spectral dog that haunts churchyards. My dear boy, it is an omen, the worst omen of death. Harry's stomach lurched. That dog on the cover of Death Omens in Flourish and Blots. He's Jamaican. Oh, come on, Jules. Oh, come on, he's not Jamaican. Harry's stomach lurched. That dog on the cover of Death Omens in Flourish and Blots. The dog in the shadows of Magnolia Crescent. Lavender Brown clapped her hands to her mouth, too. Everyone was looking at Harry. Everyone except Hermione, who had got up and moved around to the back of Professor Trelawney's chair. Sorry, it's getting me again. I don't think it looks like a Grim, she said flatly. Professor Trelawney surveyed Hermione with mounting dislike. You'll forgive me for saying so, my dear, but I perceive every little aura around you, very little receptivity to the resonance of the future. Seamus Finnegan was tilting his head from side to side. It looks like a Grim if you do this, he said with his eyes almost shut, but it looks more like a donkey from here, he said, leaning to the left. When you've all finished deciding whether I'm going to die or not, said Harry, taking even himself by surprise. Now nobody seemed to want to look at him. Why aren't they French? Who? What did they say about Dean Thomas?
Random English dude.
Random English dude. Okay, well, I can make him fun. I can make him a Russian. Professor Trelawney. I think we will leave the lesson for here today, said Professor Trelawney in her mistiest voice. Yes, please pack away your things. Silently, the class took their teacups back to Professor Trelawney, packed away their books, and closed their bags. Even Ron was avoiding Harry's eyes. Until we meet again, said Professor Trelawney faintly. Fair fortune be yours. Oh, and dear, she pointed at Neville, you'll be late next time, so mind your work extra hard to catch up. She's a weirdo. Welsh. Oh, Welsh. Oh, gosh, let me see if I can do Welsh. Harry, Ron, and Hermione descended Professor Trelawney's ladder and the winding staircase in silence, then set off for Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration lesson. It took them so long to find her classroom that, early as they had left Divination, they were only just in time. Harry chose a seat right at the back of the room, feeling as though he was sitting in a very bright spotlight. The rest of the class kept shooting furtive glances at him, as though he was about to drop dead at any moment. He hardly heard what Professor McGonagall was telling them about animagi, animagi, wizards who could transform at will into animals, and wasn't even watching when she transformed herself in front of their eyes into a tabby cat with spectacle markings around her eyes. Really, what has got into you all? Oh, sorry, beautiful, lovely Scotland. Okay, really, what has got into you all today? Oh, gosh, said Professor McGonagall, turning back into herself with a faint pop and staring around at them all. Not that it matters, but that's the first time my transfiguration's not got applause from a class. Everyone's head turned towards Harry again, but nobody spoke. Then Hermione raised her hand. Please, Professor, we've just had our first divination class, and we were reading the tea leaves and... Animagi, yeah. Ah, of course, said Professor McGonagall, suddenly frowning. There's no need to say any more, Miss Granger. Tell me, which of you will be dying this year? Everyone stared at her. Me? Said Harry, finally. I see, said Professor McGonagall, fixing Harry with her beady eyes. Then you should know, Potter, that Sybil Trelawney has predicted the death of one student a year since she arrived at this school. None of them have none. Rona. None of them has died yet. Seeing death omens is her favourite way of greeting a new class. If it were not for the fact that I never speak ill of my colleagues, Professor McGonagall broke off, and they saw that her nostrils had gone white. She went on more calmly. Divination is one of the most imprecise branches of magic. I shall not conceal from you that I have very little patience with it. True seers are very rare, and Professor Trelawney... She stopped again and then said in a very matter-of-fact tone, You look excellent in health to me, Potter. So you will excuse me if I don't let you have homework today. I assure you that if you die, you need not hand it in. Hermione laughed. Harry felt a bit better. It was harder to feel scared of a lump of tea leaves away from the dim red light and befuddling perfume of Professor Trelawney's classroom. Not everyone was convinced, however. Ron still looked up, and Lavender... Who's Lavender? And Lavender whispered, What about Neville's cup? With the Transfiguration class had finished, they joined the crowd thundering towards the great hall for lunch. Ron, cheer up, said Hermione, pushing a dish of stew towards him. You heard what Professor McGonagall said. Ron spewed... Wow, that's a tongue twister. Ron spooned stew.
Whoa.
Ron spooned stew. Whoa. Ron spooned stew onto his plate. And try saying that at home 5 times fast. Try it out. Ron spooned stew onto his plate and picked up his fork but didn't start. Harry, he said in a low, serious voice, you haven't seen a great black dog anywhere, have you? Yeah, I have, said Harry. I saw one on the night I left the Dursleys. Ron let his fork fall with a clatter. Probably a stray, said Hermione calmly. Ron looked at Hermione as though she had gone mad. Hermione, if Harry's seen a Grim, that's bad, he said. My Uncle Bilious saw one, and he died 24 hours later. Coincidence, said Hermione airily, pouring herself some pumpkin juice. You don't know what you're talking about, said Ron, starting to get angry. Grims scare the living daylights out of most wizards. There you are then, said Hermione. There you are then, said Hermione in a superior tone. They see the Grim and die of fright. The Grim's not an omen. It's the cause of death. And Harry's still with us because he's not stupid enough to see one and think, right, well, I'd better pop my clogs then. Pop my clogs? I also don't know what that means. What did Carrie say? She's the one who has told...
Lavender Brown is the one...
Oh, the thing she's dreading will happen on the 16th of October. Oh, okay. Ron mouthed wordlessly at Hermione, who opened her bag, took out her new arithmancy book, and propped it open against the juice bag. I think divination seems very woolly, she said, searching for a page. A lot of guesswork, if you ask me. There was nothing woolly about the grim in that cup, said Ron hotly. You didn't seem quite so confident when you were telling Harry it was a sheep, said Hermione coolly. Professor Trelawney said you didn't have the right aura. You just don't like being rubbish at something for a change. He had touched a nerve. Hermione slammed her arithmancy book down on the table so hard that bits of meat and carrot flew everywhere. If being good at divination means I have to pretend to see death omens in a lump of tea leaves, I'm not sure I'll be studying it much longer. That lesson was absolute rubbish compared to my arithmancy class. She snatched up her bag and stalked away. Ron frowned after her. What's she talking about? He said to Harry. She hasn't been to an arithmancy class yet. Big fight, big fight, big fight. Touched a nerve. Well, not that big. That's not going to separate them at all. Oh, wow. I like that character. She is funny. She's a funny character. Again, some great writing by Rowling. She's so good at slapstick, too, in these. Like, you can picture the slapstick that's happening. That's hard to do, I think, in a book. I think that's really hard to do. You know, because what you're doing is you're picturing actually, with slapstick, you're picturing timing, in a way. So for an author to create that timing in your head is pretty effective. Harry was pleased to get out of the castle after lunch. Yesterday's rain had cleared. The sky was a clear, pale gray, and the grass was springy and damp underfoot as they set off for their first ever Care of Magical Creatures class. Ron and Hermione weren't speaking to each other. Harry walked beside them in silence as they went down the sloping lawns to Hagrid's hut on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. It was only when he spotted only two familiar backs ahead of them that he realized they must be having these lessons with the Slytherins. Here we go. Please, Crabbe and Goyle, speak. Malfoy was talking animatedly to Crabbe and Goyle, who were chortling. Harry was quite sure he knew what they were talking about. Hagrid was waiting for his class at the door of his hut. I mean, it's like Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Like Malfoy mostly, he has nothing else to do with his day other than be like, and that Harry, he's so stupid. Just like all day long. Hagrid was waiting for his class at the door of his hut. He stood in his moleskin overcoat with Fang the Boarhound at his heels, looking impatient to start. Come on now, get a move on, he called as the class approached. Got a real treat for you today. Great lessons coming up. Everyone here? Right, follow me. He's so excited. For one nasty moment, Harry thought that Hagrid was going to lead them into the forest. Harry had had enough unpleasant experiences in there to last him a lifetime. However, Hagrid strolled off around the edge of the trees, and 5 minutes later, they found themselves outside a kind of paddock. There was nothing in there. Everyone gather round the fence here, he said. That's it. Make sure you can see. Now, first things you'll want to do is open your books. How? Said the cold, drawling voice of Draco Malfoy. Eh? said Hagrid. How do we open our books? Malfoy repeated. He took out his copy of the Monster Book of Monsters, which he had bound shut with a length of rope. Other people took theirs out too. Some, like Harry, had belted their books shut. Others had crammed them inside tight bags or clamped them together with bull clips. Yeah, I say Goyle and what's his name, Crabbe that way on purpose because that's how it's written. You know, that's how Rowling intended it. So I'm staying true to how she's writing it. You know, everybody has their own interpretation, okay? Hasn't anyone been able to open their books? Said Hagrid, looking crestfallen. The class all shook their heads. You've got to stroke 'em, said Hagrid, as though this was the most obvious thing in the world. Look! He took Hermione's copy and ripped off the spellotape that bound it. The book tried to bite, but Hagrid ran a giant forefinger down its spine, and the book shivered, and then fell open and lay quiet in his hand. Oh, how silly we've all been! Malfoy sneered. We should have stroked them. Why didn't we guess? I thought they were funny, Hagrid said uncertainly to Hermione. Oh, tremendously funny, said Malfoy. Really witty, giving us books that try and rip our hands off. Shut up, Malfoy, No, shut up, Malfoy, said Harry quietly. Hagrid was looking downcast. He's already impacted his big heart. Looking downcast, and Harry wanted Hagrid's first lesson to be a success. Right then, he said Hagrid, who seemed to have lost his thread. So you've got your books open, and now you need the magical creatures, yeah. So I'll go and get them. Hang on. He strode away from them into the forest and out of sight. God, this place is going to the dogs, said Malfoy loudly. That oaf teaching classes. My father will have a fit when I tell him. Shut up, Malfoy, Harry repeated. Careful, Potter. There's a Demento behind you. Lavender Brown. I can't remember. Give me some descriptions for her, because she's apparently saying more stuff. So, adjectives for Lavender Brown. Oh! Squealed Lavender Brown, pointing towards the opposite side of the paddock. Trotting towards them were a dozen of the most bizarre creatures Harry had ever seen. They had the bodies, hind legs, and tails of horses, but the front legs, wings, and heads of what seemed to be giant eagles, with cruel, steel-colored beaks and large, brilliantly orange eyes. The talons on their front legs were half a foot long and deadly looking, very girly. Okay, oh, thank you. Ballet girl with work. Okay, ditzy. Okay, thank you. Each of the beasts had a thick leather collar around its... Oh, wait. The talons on their front legs were a half a foot long and deadly looking. Okay, let me say that. Bodies, hind legs, horses, front legs, wings, and heads of what seemed to be giant eagles. Okay, so horse eagles, this thing, the horse eagle. The talons of the front legs were half a foot long and deadly looking. Each of the beasts had a thick leather collar around its neck, which was attached to a long chain, and the ends of all of these were held in the vast hands of Hagrid, who came jogging into the paddock behind the creatures. Gee up there! Gee up there! Oh, I lost his voice for a second there. He roared, shaking the chains and urging the creatures toward the fence where the class stood. Everyone drew back slightly as Hagrid reached them and tethered the creatures to the fence. Hippogriffs! Hippogriffs! Hagrid roared happily, waving a hand at them. Hippogriffs. Why hippo? Oh, but there was something about hippos before. That previous teacher gave a warning about hippo something. I remember this, I think. Beautiful, aren't they? Harry could sort of see what Hagrid meant. Once you had got over the first shock of seeing something that was half horse... Oh, Dexy, look at him. Yeah. Once you got over the shock of seeing something that was half horse, half bird, you started to appreciate the hippogriff's gleaming coats, changing smoothly from feather to hair, each of them a different color, stormy gray, bronze, a pinkish roan, gleaming chestnuts, and inky black. So, said Hagrid, rubbing his hands together and beaming around, if you want to come a bit nearer. No one seemed to want to. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, however, approached the fence cautiously. You didn't even pet him. Yeah, I did. I did too. Okay, let me keep going. Now, first things you got to know about hippogriffs is they're proud, said Hagrid. Easily offended, hippogriffs are. Don't never insult one, because it might be the last thing you do. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle weren't listening. They were talking in an undertone, and Harry had a nasty feeling they were plotting how to best to disrupt the lesson. You always wait for the hippogriff to make the first move, Hagrid continued. It's polite, see? You walk towards him, and you bow, and you wait. If he bows back, you're allowed to touch him. If he doesn't bow, then get away from him sharpish, because those talons hurt. Right. Who wants to go first? Most of the class backed away in answer. Even Harry, Ron, and Hermione had misgivings. The hippogriffs were tossing their fierce heads and flexing their powerful wings. They didn't seem to like being tethered like this. No one, said Hagrid with a pleading... No one, said Hagrid with a pleading look. I'll do it, said Harry. There was an intake of breath from behind him, and both Lavender and Parvati whispered... So Lavender, wait, how is it? Draco's like this, and then she's like, and then she's like this. Oh, she's like that character from Great Little Britain or something like that. this and that and this, that. Do you know that character?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, Harry, remember your tea leaves. Let's try that. Harry ignored them. He climbed over the paddock fence. Good man, Harry, roared Hagrid. Right then, let's see how you get on with a buckbeak. He untied one of the chains, pulled the great hippogriff away from his fellows, and slipped off his leather collar. The class on the other side of the paddock seemed to be holding its breath. Malfoy's eyes were narrowed maliciously. Easy now, Harry, said Hagrid quietly. You've got eye contact. Now, try not to blink. Hippogriffs don't trust you if you blink too much. Harry's eyes immediately began to water, but he didn't shut them. Buckbeak had turned his great, sharp head and was staring at Harry with one fierce orange eye. That's it, said Hagrid. That's it, Harry. Now, bow. Harry didn't feel much like exposing the back of his neck to Buckbeak, but he did what he was told. He gave a sharp bow and then looked up. The hippogriff was still staring haughtily at him. It didn't move. Ah, said Hagrid, sounding worried. Right, back away. Now, Harry. Easy does it. But then, to Harry's enormous surprise, the hippogriff suddenly bent his scaly front knees and sank into what was an unmistakable bow. Well done, Harry, said Hagrid, ecstatic. Right, you can touch him. Pat his beak, go on. Feeling that a better reward would have been to back away, Harry moved slowly towards the hippogriff and reached out towards him. He patted the beak several times, and the hippogriff closed his eyes lazily, as though enjoying it. The class broke into applause, all except Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were looking deeply disappointed. Right then, Harry, said Hagrid. I reckon he might let you ride him. This was more than Harry had bargained for. He was used to a broomstick, but he wasn't sure a hippogriff would be quite the same. You climb up there, just behind the wing joint, said Hagrid. And mind you, don't pull any of his feathers out. He won't like that. Harry put his foot on the top of Buckbeak's wing and hoisted himself onto his back. Buckbeak stood up. Harry wasn't sure where to hold on. Everything in front of him was covered in feathers. Go on then, roared Hagrid, slapping the hippogriff's hindquarters. Whoa. Without warning, 12-foot wings flapped open on either side of Harry. He had just had enough time to seize the hippogriffs around the neck before he was soaring upwards. It was nothing like a broomstick, and Harry knew which one he preferred. The hippogriff's wings were beating uncomfortably on either side of him, catching him under his legs and making him feel he was about to be thrown off. The glossy feathers slipped under his wings, and he didn't dare get a stronger grip. Instead of the smooth action of his Nimbus 2000, he now felt himself rocking backwards and forwards as the hindquarters of the hippogriff rose and fell with his wings. Buckbeak flew him once more around the paddock and then headed back to the ground. This was the bit Harry had been dreading. He leaned back as the smooth neck lowered, feeling he was going to slip off over the beak. Then he felt a heavy thud as the 4 ill-assorted feet hit the ground, and just managed to hold on and push himself straight again. Good work, Harry, roared Hagrid, as everyone except Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle cheered. Okay, who else wants to go? Emboldened by Harry's success, the rest of the class climbed cautiously into the paddock. Hagrid untied the hippogriffs one by one, and soon people were bowing nervously all over the paddock. Neville ran repeatedly backwards from his, which didn't seem to want to bend its knees. Ron and Hermione practiced on the chestnut, while Harry watched. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle had taken over Buckbeak. He had bowed to Malfoy, who was now patting his beak, looking disdainful. This is very easy, Malfoy drawled, loud enough for Harry to hear him. I knew it must have been if Potter could do it. I bet you're not dangerous at all, are you? He said to the hippogriff. Are you, you ugly great brute? It happened in a flash of steely talons. Malfoy let out a high-pitched scream. Oh, no! And next moment, Hagrid was wrestling Buckbeak back into his collar, and he strained to get at Malfoy, who lay curled in the grass, blood blossoming over his robes. Whoa! I'm dying! Malfoy yelled as the class panicked. I'm dying! Look at me! It's killed me! "You're not dying," said Hagrid, who had gone very white. "Somebody help me! Gotta get him out of here!" Hermione ran to open the gate while Hagrid lifted Malfoy easily. As they passed, Harry saw there was a long, deep gash in Malfoy's arm. Blood splattered the grass, and Hagrid ran with him, up the slope towards the castle. I'm going to end here. That's a good ending point. Oh, for a moment there I was going to say, wow, Hagrid's first class went really well. And then this. And of course, Lucius Malfoy is going to try and disrupt the class and say he's not fit to be a teacher. Hagrid's going to get real sad. These are my predictions. Okay, I'm going to have a little interaction, Q&A time. People wrote down some questions, which is cool. I forgot all about this. Why do you smell? Thanks, Mark. Mark wrote that question. What class would be your favorite at Hogwarts? John and Mark. Oh, okay, this is really hard because I can't remember all the classes. There's Transfiguration, turning things into each other. Divination, which is what again?
That's the one we
Teacup one.
just did.
Yeah, okay, that one.
Seeing the future.
Yeah, then we have the dark arts, defense against the dark arts. We got the plants one where you like just replant mud babies. I can't remember the other classes. So I think either Transfiguration. I think Transfiguration or Transfiguration would probably be my favorite. Yeah, for sure. It'd be like, ugh, I'm hungry. There's a stone. Instant hot chocolate or something like that. Thanks for the encouragement. Will you do more paired reading later? Maybe. That was a fun experience, and that was really fun doing with Robbie. Yeah, maybe. I might have a surprise, another fun surprise, maybe, but I'm not going to talk about that because that's another sure thing. But yeah, I'm open to exploring it every once in a while. I don't want to make it a constant thing, but every once in a while I think I like trying things out, so yeah, maybe. Did you purposely match your shirt to the scar? Not today. I have the scar is always green because that's the only marker I have that I can actually put on skin. Everything else will be permanent. But I might get other markers and play around with colors. Do you wish you had more fangirls? No, I don't. It's a bizarre world. So props to Robbie. What do you usually do inside all day? I take Dexter for 3 walks a day. What else do I do? Well, I'm looking online for different ways to make money because all my gigs got canceled. Probably finally have Patreon tomorrow or the day after. I know it's been taking a while for me. I prep for this, yeah. What else? Who do you think the prisoner of Azkaban is? I don't know. Well, would it be Black? Didn't he escape? It's probably him. I'll take credit for sending these to you yesterday. I don't know what you mean by these, Tash. Did you see J.K. Rowling tweet about your streams? She did not. What does Mark smell like? Oh, how the tables have turned! He smells like a bunch of maggots having a party.
Fucking good party. Well, excuse me, language.
What's for dinner? Dinner today, I don't know. He always gets chicken and rice. What will your Patreon be for? For me, if you want to just donate, you don't have to. I'll do these regardless. But if you feel like it, a portion of it will go to me, and a portion will go to some sort of cause or group that is doing good work. So it'll be split. How much money would you take to put a permanent marker for the symbol? I wouldn't do anything except for maybe a tattoo I would decide on, but nothing on the face probably ever for no money. Those she tweeted about how your streams were actually part of the original book. It's canon. You're right. Okay, I got a minute left. Come back tomorrow for 6 o'clock. We're gonna do this again. Some shout outs. Go to Jalen, Jalen Saip, Jalen Saip. She does really fun musical things on her account. She's a good friend of mine. My brother Mike Voth, 1984, for some cool art. Cave Cannon Productions for my company, our company that I'm a part of. Byron Noble, Byron is his account. He does Game of Thrones reads every day. I love hearing you while I paint. Oh, that's cool. I would love to see what sort of paintings you have. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Tune in back in tomorrow. Bye from me, bye from Mark, bye from Dexter. Hope you have a wonderful evening with and come back tomorrow for more Conk's Corner. Bye-bye.